Welcome to another edition of the Pacers Pride Podcast. I am your host, Cody Emerson. Alongside me, as always, my good friend and co-host, Dylan Deanhart. And we are also joined by, we like to call him the Pacer Financial Guru because he does so much with the Pacers and financial situations, and he's just a master at it. Tony East, thank you for coming back on the show.
Yeah, guys, thanks for having me again. Apparently I did well enough the first time.
It's always a pleasure to have you, Tony. We greatly appreciate it. So we are going to it's going to be a free agency special edition just because, as all of Pacer fans and Pacer Nation knows, and we have a lot of decisions that we need to make this offseason regarding 6 or 7 free agents pending. Most of them, I think, excluding Devon Reed, I believe, Tony, you can probably, is Devon Reed is restricted, but the rest of them are unrestricted, correct?
Yes, Devon Reed is restricted in theory, although I don't know how much that minutia is relevant.
So let's just, what the plan is, just going to go through each of them, see if we want them back, should the Pacers want them back, and what kind of financial compensation, I guess, would be the best term to use for each of these guys and what kind of contracts they should or could be expecting. So we'll start with Tony. I guess we'll start with Bojan because Bojan's the
swinging hard early.
Yeah, I've been hearing that he's kind of the main focus of the Pacers, of the guys that are pending free agents. He's the guy that they want to bring back the most, and for good reason, obviously. Just the season that he had, obviously. When Vic went down, he was the go-to guy, so we'll start with you. Obviously, I think the Pacers want him back, but what kind of contract or kind of years, because I know he's 30 years old, but he's only played 5 years in the league, but he's been, since he was playing overseas and whatnot, but so what kind of contract, I guess, should we be expecting, or should Bojan want or expect?
I think with Bojan and a couple guys here, a key stipulation for them this summer, given their age, will be the number of years they get versus the number of dollars they get. You know, if Bojan was 25, I think it'd be reasonable that he could expect the same amount of money every year on his next deal. But because he's 30, there's a lot of reason to think he could drop off as a player, and thus he could either pursue two types of deals. One that is like 2 years, $40 million, where he's good the whole time, but he only gets $40 million total, or something like 3 years, $50 million, or 3 years, $48 million, or 4 years, $60 million, something like that, where the annual value goes down every time you add a year, but he adds the extra year of guaranteed money.
Right.
And I think that's going to be an interesting balance for him as he chases other teams. I think he did the article with the Indy Star with Jay Michael where he talked about how he likes, rigid coaching and he doesn't like changing teams, which was his diplomatic way over and over of saying, yeah, I'd like to stay if they'll have me. But, one, obviously he's going to say that. But two, I think that because he plays the wing, there's reason to believe that's such a demanded position that he could get a big offer. But if he does, I think the Pacers made his career. There is a reason to think he could give them a small discount. So to me, for him, it's if they're willing to give him the years he's looking for, I think they can get to some wiggle room on money in the 14 to 16 million range. But if another team blows him away with a short-term deal, I think the annual value of his contract could get between 16 and 20 million even. So his free agency is going to be very interesting to me.
Yeah, and obviously I think the Pacers should and do. I'm not going to say blow the doors off to go and re-sign him, but Dylan, I know it's probably going to be high on their radar to keep Bojan.
Yeah, it seems that way. I mean, we've heard ever since the summer that he's been due an extension from the Pacers. He's pretty much the main scoring option aside from Victor, so it'd be crucial to get him back, or at least if we don't, we have a very serious scoring void that we need to fill in his absence. So I feel like this is probably priority number one in terms of Pacers offseason. And I would like to see him come back. It just depends on the money he's going to be demanding or what teams kind of try to attract him. So
yeah, and Tony, you can maybe provide some more insight on this. Do you know if some other teams that could potentially be looking at Bojan? Or
man, I need to do that exercise where I actually go through other teams around the league that have needs for Pacers players. I haven't done that yet. There's probably, I think, 10 to 15 teams that could have enough space to hit the range that I just described. But probably a third of them are your Lakers, your Knicks, your Clippers, your guys who, if their summer was getting Bojan Bogdanovic for $20 million, like, no offense to the Pacers and no offense to those teams' fans, but they'd all be disappointed with that. And I don't think that puts them in the running for him. I don't think that makes it realistic. So his market isn't limited. That's the wrong word to use, but it's just different in that way because he's one of those guys who's really good, but it's not going to be someone that every team with big space is going to chase him for. I feel like Dallas could be a team that has the money and makes an offer for him. The Kings always are trying to get wings in free agency. So I think there are a few teams that could, make it happen for him, but I don't think it's going to be a hyper-competitive, the value goes flying market.
Right. So we will move on now to we'll do Wesley Matthews, because I would, me personally, I would like to see a full season of Wesley Matthews in a Pacers uniform. He was inconsistent since when the Pacers first signed him. That first 3 weeks to a month, he was pretty successful, I would say, but kind of fell off near the end of the year. We talked about on the show a lot. It seems like he wouldn't get the number of shots that he would get up is between each game varied wildly. Sometimes he'd only take 5 shots. Some nights he'd take 12, maybe even 15 shots. But in terms of free agency, Tony, do you see the Pacers trying to bring back Wesley Matthews?
He's an interesting one. He came here because of the starting spot. The playing time was attractive to him because he was trying to chase one more big deal, and he's already 33. So, is that right? I might have just said it incorrect.
I think he's 32.
Yeah, high 32, maybe.
Yeah, I was about to say, I know he's past 30. I know that much.
Yeah. So the length for him, I talked with Bojan about the trade for him. That doesn't really exist. He's just going to be chasing whatever the most guaranteed money is. That's why he took the situation he did when he came here. The Pacers don't have a ton of means to easily re-sign him unless they use cap space, which I don't know that they'd want to immediately go out and use space on Wesley Matthews. Not that he wasn't good here, like you guys said. It was kind of an inconsistent role, and then it all kind of fell apart. His playoffs was a disaster, but there was reason for him to be back. He's a good professional. He knows the coaches and GMs all well from his time in Portland. But I think he's chasing his last deal, which is where's the most guaranteed money, and I think a team like the Rockets or any high contender would want to add a cursory shooter to their roster. So I'd almost guess he isn't back if he gets 3 for 16 on the full mid-level from one of the title teams. But there is familiarity with him that means that he could be back. I just don't see it myself.
Yeah, obviously if he's come back with the Pacers, it wouldn't be in the starting spot like you mentioned, and that's why he originally signed after the Vic injury. But I would love him as a backup, but like you said, if a contending team like, say, a Houston or, even a Golden State or some wild contender goes out and says, hey, come to us and we'll pay not as much money, maybe, per se, but,
you can get a ring.
Yeah, you can get a ring.
Houston guy, right? They get PJ Tucker in the door. They get Luka Mbamute in the door.
Yeah.
They get the kind of guy who can come in, and if James Harden passes them the ball, they'll hit the 3, and then on the other end of the floor, they have enough size to play competent enough defense on anyone another title contender could throw at him. I think that's almost like a perfect fit, if I'm being honest.
Yeah. Dylan, just thoughts on Wesley Matthews? Would you like to see him back?
I would like to see him back, ideally, in an ideal world where everything makes sense
where
and everything
money is not a factor.
Yeah. I would like to see him back, but in reality, I don't think that he has a role anymore with the Pacers, assuming Victor comes back fully healthy and the same player he was beforehand. I don't think he'll be coming back. Like he said, I think he'll probably expect either a starting role or at least a title team. And I don't know if the Pacers can really persuade him on that end of the spectrum besides. But I would like to have seen him come back and seen what a full season of Wesley Matthews would have been like. It just seemed like he struggled really getting into the flow of the offense toward when he got here. So it was a shame to see his kind of time with the Pacers go to a waste, sort of say. But I would like to see what a full season of Wesley Matthews would have looked like.
Yeah, me too. And just because he's a perfect 3-and-D type of player. Because when he was getting his shots up, he was, like I said, during those first 3 weeks to a month when he was with the Pacers, it looked like a perfect fit and everything. But just, Tony, you mentioned his horrendous playoffs, and yet credit to the rest of the league, honestly, when they figured out Wesley Matthews. Well, they knew kind of he was a 3-and-D type of guy, but the Celtics were just lengthy all over the floor, and that's why they were able to take away his ability. But we'll see what happens with Wesley Matthews. Even if he doesn't come back, and I guess I will say this for every Pacer, thank you for just in case they don't come back. Thanks for your time with the team. But we'll shift now. We'll do. Let's go Thad, because Thad, I think, is right up there with Bojan in terms I think should be priority for the Pacers, but it was Thad's free agency was interesting last year when we waited to see whether he would accept or decline his team option, and then he ended up accepting it. But now he's an unrestricted free agent. Teams could use a vet, kind of like what we mentioned with Wesley Matthews. I think a veteran team who's contending for a championship maybe could go out and sign him. Tony, what are your thoughts on the whole Thad free agency?
That is so interesting to me because I think every single team in the league could use a Thad Young.
Mm-hmm.
The captain of the team, he's a great vet. I think he knows his role as like a basketball player is as both an entertainer and a teammate and a player. So he just understands where he fits in everywhere, and he's nice to everybody. He's a great teammate, and of course, he's a great player. That's why Pacers fans want to keep him. He's an interesting case of years, not dollars, like Bojan, because he's 30. But like any team, even a crappy team that just has a bunch of young guys, would love to have a guy like that in the locker room, talking to those guys about his experiences around the league. So I think that his value could get not driven up a ton from that, just because, I don't know if a young team's going to get in a bidding war to get that kind of guy, but because there will be so many teams that I think could use his services, both as a bench guy, we saw him do well as the only starter with the bench last year here, or as a starter, as like the fifth starter on a good team because he's a good player. I think he'll have a fair number of starters, and I think the Pacers should be one of them because he has been fantastic to this team and fits in really well. They need his skill set. He's consummate professional all the time. So I think that they should pursue him now. The challenge is, if you want a max guy and you get a max guy, you're pretty much stuck picking between Bojan and Thad.
Right.
That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about just Thad. But I think they try to bring Thad back on like a 10 to somewhere between 10 and the 13.7 he makes now deal. I think that makes a lot of sense. But like with Bojan, I think if you add more years, you can take off some per year value. If you take away a year, you have to add some per year value. I think in that range, it depends on how many years he gets is what his dollar amount ends at.
And we've talked about, Dylan and I have, I personally, and I think Dylan, I can speak for both of us, when we say we'd like to see maybe it gets interesting at the power forward spot because the Pacers do have Alize Johnson who tore up the G League, and they have TJ Leaf who's shown signs of I loved what I saw from TJ when he got minutes this year, and that was kind of the big struggle with him. But what do you, Tony, obviously, I wouldn't say TJ's ready for that starting role just yet, so that's why I think that bringing back Thad and maybe having Thad mentor TJ and Alize would be a great fit.
Yes, agreed. I think another issue here with Thad is KP's always talked about stretch fours. He loves the idea of a stretch four. I think signing McDermott, he almost wanted a stretch four, but maybe they thought playing Leaf also had as much value as that. And Leaf did show some improvement from year 1 to 2, which was very important because if he didn't show the skills that he did this year, which actually were pretty much the opposite skills he showed his rookie year, I'm not sure how much longer he'd be on this team. But with Leaf and Alizé having some promise there, I think you have to try, both from a cap perspective and a team building perspective, to let them be. I think you try to let Leaf specifically be your backup next year.
Yep.
If it doesn't work, then you get a guy. But I think they're both going to try to have. I think the fit is there to have them try to be in the rotation. So I think that does lend to having Thad come back. But at the same time, if they do get the stretch where they want, they can still have Leaf be the guy off the bench. So I'm not really sure that the younger guys have a ton of bearing on Thad returning, but because there's the familiarity between them, and like I said, he is such a good vet to have around, that does add a little value for him.
Yeah, Dylan, just Pacers, like we talked about Thad, we've talked about all year, kind of being that glue and kind of the, I guess, next David West on the team. Like I can't remember the exact game it was, and Tony, you may be able to jog my brain a little bit, but the game where the bench was having such a good run and keeping them in the game, and Thad, Nate McMillan was about to put Thad back in, and Thad told Nate, no, these guys are won. And I can't remember what game that is off the top of my head, but I know just that moment kind of showed.
Was it the Thunder, because they closed with Domas?
Yes, it was the Thunder game. Yeah, and Thad basically told Nate, no, I'm not going back in. These guys are hot right now, and that's the kind of guy that, like I said, he's kind of the glue to the team, and I would hate to see that guy go, because, I mean, I think it would probably then be, obviously the leader of the team would maybe be Vic after that point, but just hoping that Thad is able to come back a Pacer, because the city loves him. And the team loves him. I don't think I've heard one negative. Yeah, we all love Thad, and I don't think I've heard one negative thing said about Thaddeus Young in his time with the Pacers. Unlike this next guy that we're gonna talk about, and that will be good old Tyreke Evans. Tony, for me, Tyreke, with his play in the playoffs, granted there were some bad moments thrown in there, but that's what you're going to get with Tyreke. But he made this decision a lot harder for me, because he was able to play. I did not anticipate Tyreke being the reason that the Pacers were staying in a series with Boston. And
he was very good. Very good to stretch. He was good. I think I'm saying very good compared to how he was in the regular season, but he was good in the playoffs. He was a useful player. They needed that. You know, the idea behind signing him was, look, this guy can play with Vic and be really good and be a scoring punch without him. And he was neither, because the way he plays, or the way he is most effective, and has been described both by himself and people around him, is like he's a rhythm player. He needs the ball in his hands. He needs those touches to do it. And when he played alongside Vic or DC or Kojo, who also are not necessarily rhythm players, but guys who have the ball in their hand every possession and set up plays, he never got into that, and he just wasn't a good fit here. And I don't see the roster changing drastically enough for that to change, for him to suddenly become a good fit next year.
Right.
And in that way, I think there's almost no way he comes back. But, say both point guards, both Carlson and Joseph, walk and sign somewhere else, it's not ridiculous to me that they'd be like, you know what, Tyreke, let's try use the point guard next year. But I don't think they're going to do that just because of the way the experiment went this year.
Yeah, I think I'm still leaning towards not even looking his way, because I know I think his brother or whatever tweeted out like late in the season when the Pacers were going through that difficult Western Conference stretch. I think he tweeted out something along the lines of "Thank God it's almost over," or something along those lines. But yeah, it just wasn't a good fit. And Dylan, I know we've talked about Tyreke on the show a lot, and just I know you have some strong opinions.
I liked the idea of Tyreke. But to me, it just gave me flashbacks of Monte Ellis.
Yep.
It shivered me to my fibers. So I wouldn't mind seeing that, or Tyreke. God, I keep calling him that. Tyreke going in free agency. I think it opens up a little bit more money.
Yeah.
It gives us some opportunities to be more flexible with some other players. So it was a nice experiment. I'm glad it was only like a 1-year deal. We're not tied to him for multiple years, so at least it was a manageable season, unlike that of the Monte Ellis experiment.
Yeah, where we were and
still paying him.
Yeah, I'm about to say, Tony, how many years? Is it 1 or 2 more years, or were we still paying Monte?
They got 3 more.
Oh, 3 more. Oh, my God.
They're done paying Monte at the end of the 2021-2022 season.
Oh, my Jesus.
So, I want to talk about that because...
Go right ahead.
This is such a small thing to talk about, but every time I tweet out the cap sheet, someone says, like, why did they stretch Monte? Oh, my gosh, how ridiculous. And, yeah, it looks bad, You see him floating around at the bottom of the sheet every year. He's making more than some of the rookies and the minimum guys. But at the same time, when they stretched him, they opened up over $8 million of space, and that was in the summer they used all their space to get guys like Bojan and Collison and stuff. So my pushbacks, I was like, they had to do it to get Bojan.
Yeah, it makes sense.
So in that way, I think it was probably the right move, even though the hovering and lingering of this stretch is annoying. I like the comp with Monte Tyreek because on court, I think they were pretty identical.
Yeah.
The only pushback I usually have with that is like Monte was not a fit in the org like at all. Like he did not get along with other players and guys in the team. And maybe Tyreek has some organizational issues, but he gets along with every teammate every time I've seen them interact. And that's the only difference that gives him a higher chance than Monte of returning. But again, I think the on-court fit was so bad that that's almost no way.
Yeah, and it's kind of like Dylan, you described it as just the 1-year experiment. And I think that was... Yeah,
it's hard to learn from it.
It really is.
Experiment, and you want to say, okay, this experiment failed. Why? What can we do? But that skill set seems like the one they need. Maybe he's just not the guy, and that's the answer. But it's very interesting to me. I've been grappling with that quite a bit.
Yeah, then just unfortunately didn't pan out like most Pacer fans thought. But we're gonna go to the point guards now, with both of the Pacers point guards, Darren Collison and Corey Joseph, being unrestricted free agents. We'll start with DC. Tony, I wouldn't mind bringing DC back and having Holiday come off the bench, but I know there are going to be other teams that are vying for DC services as well.
It seems like Holiday off the bench is a certainty next year. And maybe not even as, the point guard, but just, a guard. He's one of the 4 guys who gets minutes at the bench. That doesn't matter. It's all semantics. Like you said, or was it you? I don't know. I talked to a lot of people today. Anyway, as long as a guard can take the ball up the floor, that's all that matters.
Yeah.
Point guard is what it's not that rigid anyway. So I don't think both Collison and Joseph are back. But there's a chance one of them is back, and I don't know which one they're leaning towards or which one makes more sense. I have an opinion, which I will say after I do this rant.
Go right ahead.
I think with Collison, like with 2 other guys, Bojan and Thad, it's still some years, not dollars. He's 31. This is probably the last time he'll get, a decent-sized contract in the league. The trouble for him is that there's not a lot of teams that need a pretty good but not good enough to make you great point guard, and he's not like a guy that a team who's not very good is going to want. So I think I'm looking dead at the Wizards when I think of a team that would want Darren Collison, because with Wall going to be out the entire next year, they're going to need someone competent enough to lead them at point guard, but they don't have the money to pay him a lot of years. So I'm not sure where the team is that makes a lot of sense for him to come in and fit in and play well the whole year. But at the same time, I think the Pacers would be fine for him to come back to, but his playoff disappearing 2 years in a row makes me nervous that A, he's not the right guy here, and B, he's not a good postseason player. So my choice of the 2 is Corey Joseph, because I think he's better playing both guard positions. And like I said, it's just a guy to take the ball before. It doesn't matter which one they're at. I think with DC, though, it's probably somewhere in the 8 to 10 million range, which is where the mid-level exception is for teams that have that next year. So I think that any contender could, in theory, get the money for him. But it's going to be interesting to see which one, if they do choose one, they pursue and what kind of role they go for, because they could swing for the fence as a point guard. So it's going to be very interesting.
I'm leaning towards Kojo as well, just because I would like to see maybe, and Tony, you can chime in on this as well. If it's Kojo that gets brought back? Yeah, that's English is what I was trying to do there. But if Kojo gets brought back, Do you believe Kojo still comes off the bench, and Aaron Holiday moves into that role as a starter, or how do you see that situation fitting with Aaron Holiday?
I think that the starting guard next year will have a different guy in Dawson's spot. Whether it's Vic and another 2, or whether it's a point guard with Vic, it just feels like that's what's going to happen. So to me, whichever one they keep is going to be in the role of alongside Holiday as the second unit guards.
And Dylan, just between, if you had to pick between the two, I know it's hard because DC provides that offense that rarely turns the ball over. Meanwhile, Kojo is very solid veteran, phenomenal defensively. So you're going to be losing something if you don't re-sign one of these guys. But if you had to pick one.
Yeah, I think I'll just stick with the train and go with the Kojo pick. I just like his defense too much. I watched from the moments I did watch of the playoff series, watching Kojo on Kyrie was somewhat of a fun matchup to watch because Kyrie just could never really get free, never really shake off Corey. So that's something I really liked seeing out of a point guard, which I really haven't seen a Pacers player have for a while. So I like his defense. He really, with the league going more guard heavy, it's good to have a defensive guard that can really. We could see the benefits with a Patrick Beverley and what he's doing in LA and what a guard can do defensively for a team. So I like what Corey does, and I'm very, very excited to see what Aaron Holiday does off the bench. So
yeah, because Holiday, he turns the ball over a bit more than DC does, obviously, but the offense is there. Just needs to find consistent minutes, and that was his biggest issue this year with obviously.
I don't think the turnovers will be a lingering issue. If he has an offseason to work on it and figure out the offensive sets, I don't think it'll be that much of an issue.
Yep. So the point guard situation is definitely up in the air, but the Pacers do have Aaron Holiday to kind of lean on, and so we'll see if they bring back DC or Kojo or neither, or go out neither or both. Or go out and sign someone in free agency. I know we'll get into that in a little bit. There's some point guards out there that could definitely help the Pacers, not named Darren Collison or Corey Joseph, but we'll kind of go with a guy next, who I don't believe Tony is going to get re-signed, but he was just kind of a really fun guy to watch. He didn't play much this year, that being Kyle O'Quinn. He was just fun to watch off the bench. His reactions whenever the Pacers would hit a 3 or whatever, he was kind of just that fun, entertaining guy to watch. And when he did get minutes, he did produce for the most part. But unfortunately, I think with Miles Turner's contract and then Sabonis, you're going to have to be paying him for the most part. I'm doubtful that Kyle O'Quinn returns. Is that the feeling that you're getting as well?
Yeah, you nailed it. I feel terrible for Kyle O'Quinn because he came here because he said, I'm tired of being on the Knicks. I want to play for a good team. I want to make a playoff run. I'm happy to be the third center and do that. And then he did that, and then Vic got hurt and ended up being a contender. So he was just on a pretty good team instead of a really good team. His sacrifice was like a big reason they were able to have depth at center, and that's huge. And it sucks that the reason he chose here didn't end up paying dividends for him. But yeah, you nailed the assessment of him. He's just a great guy. He's always so upbeat and happy to be around. It was great when he was called into play, but I'm sure that he will look for either more playing time or a team that guarantees him a deeper postseason run next year. And the Pacers cannot give him probably either of those things. Maybe the deep postseason run. I don't know. Yeah. But he'll probably move on. It just seems like he will. He seems like the perfect backup to Joel Embiid if I had to pick a spot for him next year.
Yeah, and not to mention he rocks a pretty nice beard.
Yeah, I'm jealous.
Yeah. Keep him just for the beard.
I mean, if we can just sign his beard.
And how much of his current contract do you think goes to beard care products?
At least a third, if I had to guess.
At least a third, yeah, it's got to be.
But, yeah, Dylan, just like we kind of talked about, it's going to suck to not see Kyle O'Quinn, and it's just an unfortunate of situation.
It's the same kind of thing as like Al Jefferson is just like a good locker room guy, I feel like. But I feel like he's probably going to go to a team like the Golden State Warriors who kind of need any kind of backup big they need.
But they have Andrew Bogut. What are you
Yeah,
talking
I think he's an upgrade over Andrew Bogut at some sort, but yeah, I think Kyle Quinn goes ring chasing or at least money chasing. So
Yeah.
it was good to have him for a year. I liked seeing his celebrations off the bench. He was always the first guy to like jump off of his seat when something good happened. So that was always fun to watch on TV. He still had one of my best celebrations where he would take Wesley Matthews' arrows he would shoot and put him in like this imaginary quill that was somewhere on the bench that I saw during a game at one point. So he'll live in my memory for that.
Oh, yeah.
So
you kind of just need that guy off the bench, and hopefully
who are they playing? I can't remember. When the other team had a breakaway dunk, Kyle Quinn jumped off the bench to try to surprise them.
I think was that
I
the
don't remember
Bulls?
seeing. I don't remember seeing that.
Who was that against? I cannot remember. It was hysterical.
But yeah, it's just his off the bench celebrations, like we were talking about, and just I'm gonna miss it.
Yeah.
Like we said, probably there's no chance highly he comes back. So Tony, we're gonna finish off with one intriguing guy and then another guy that we'll start with Devon Reed. I mean, there's not much to really say, I guess. Besides, he is restricted, so the Pacers have the opportunity to match if a team does pick him up. But I don't see Devon Reed coming back. Unfortunately, it's just he had just too many players ahead of him just to see playing time. But thoughts on the Devon Reed and his free agency? Do you see a team maybe taking a chance on him?
I'll do cat minutia first, if you don't mind here.
No, go right ahead.
So the way that Devon Reed's free agency works is his qualifying offer he would have to get to send him into restricted free agency is a two-way contract offer for next season, too, with $50,000 guaranteed. So if the Pacers want to keep him, they could offer him that. And as soon as he gets that offer, like, no team's going to be like, well, if we offer Devon Reed a deal, they'll just match. Like, he's basically going to be playing a two-way for the Pacers next year. If they want him very badly on that, they can do that and keep him. Now, two-way players, it's like the very fringes of your team in the NBA, and you just want to do right by those guys. That's the whole reason that contract exists. And it's kind of screwing over Reed to not give him an opportunity to explore more playing time. So I honestly think they don't offer him one because of that, even though it kind of does make a lot of sense for the team. But I think they're just like, you know what? You deserve a bigger chance if one comes along for you, but we'd be happy to take care of you because, for now, back to my opinion, I think he is kind of like a relatively promising young guy. Like, he got drafted 32nd for a reason. He did some good stuff with the Suns. He just, like you said, didn't have the opportunity this year. So I think they'd have him back if the stars aligned and he was able to. But I think the way his free agency is going to go is going to be weird because he's basically a minimum guy or like a non-guaranteed guy. So it's going to be interesting to see how it shakes out for him.
Yeah, and Dylan, I know we got to see very, very little of Devon Reed, but we did get to see a good portion of him in the Hawks game, and where a lot of those young guys did play well. So maybe he showed what he can do in that Hawks game, and maybe to another team. I
mean, he had 23 minutes played in that game. He finished with 7 points, 4 rebounds, 1 assist. So it wasn't like terrible production out of it. I would have liked to seen him do a little bit more, especially in a game where it was pretty much dedicated to those kind of guys. I would like to see him at least put up a little bit bigger numbers, but it's hard to say when you sit out an entire season to just get thrust into one game and that'd be your only chance. But it'll be interesting to see if the Pacers bring him back. I understand it would probably be in the circumstances of if we're able to bring him back, we'll bring you back. But if not, we're not going to waste time and money on you. So it'll be interesting to see if he comes back. I'd be interested to see what he would do in like a G League sort of stint and see if he can like get some more consistent playing time, see what he produces. But I wouldn't be awake at night wondering where Devon Reed's
it's not going to keep you up at night.
Yeah.
So best of luck to Devon Reed wherever he ends up. If he comes back with the Pacers and on that two-way, it'll be interesting to watch him in Fort Wayne. But if he ends up on another team, best of luck to him and his future. And we're going to finish up talking about Edmund Sumner because he does have a team option that the Pacers need to make a decision on. I would like the Pacers to pick this up.
Done. That's the whole discussion, right?
Because Edmund Sumner, I know Dylan, a long time ago, I don't know if you remember, when we did, it was last year during our first year, when we did a mailbag session, I think a fan asked us about Edmund Sumner. Do you remember?
I believe so.
Yeah. It was when he was recovering from his torn ACL. And we had nothing to say because we just didn't know much about him. But he's shown me a lot, especially I watched him in the Hawks game just hit those clutch free throws to win the game. Was a huge moment for him. I'm not going to say he's quite ready to be a backup yet, but Tony, just obviously I think we're all in agreement we'd like to maybe see Edmund Sumner and what he can do, but so what role, I guess, would you see him playing if the Pacers did pick up his team option?
I love Ed. I don't know why. I just, he's a 6'6" guard. He's, really long, and he used to be super athletic, and his muscles are growing back. There's a blueprint for a cool player in there. You nailed it, though. We haven't seen it yet, but, he's shown enough to me that he's clearly a minimum player and has promise, and his contract next year is the minimum. No-brainer, you pick it up. I think that's the whole discussion to me. The Hawks game, you saw what the stuff he can do. He guarded Klay Thompson ably in his first performance. I think that it's over. He'll definitely get that picked up and be back.
Yeah, and Dylan, we can maybe get to see more of Edmund Sumner next year and see what he can maybe do.
Yeah.
And just your thoughts on Sumner and what we've seen.
Assuming I'm just going to use this hypothetical scenario that we have just to project what he's going to do. Assuming we have Kojo and Aaron Holiday as the backup point guards, I could see him getting some 3-guard or 3-spot rotation minutes, similar to the kind of what Aaron Holiday was getting at the end towards the end of this season, which I think would be fitting 5 to 6 minutes occasionally per game would be applicable for Edmund Sumner, which would give us a better understanding of his skill set, what he can do, what he can't do. So I think that would be fitting, assuming that scenario is happening. In any other scenario, I just don't know what his minutes would be, but if I could see him, if we have that kind of standard guard rotation, he could easily get a third spot in the rotation and get some kind of garbage minutes.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting. I think it's a no-brainer, like you mentioned, Tony, that they pick it up. Especially you mentioned it's a minimum option.
Minimum deal. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So what would that 1.5?
I don't even have it.
Or okay. I'm about to.
In front of me.
I don't know if the minimum exception, but I think we're all in agreement. We want to see him back. See what he can do. He definitely, I think that Hawks game sealed it.
Yeah.
And hopefully that the Pacers and KP and everyone pick it up, and we'll get to see more of Edmund Sumner. So that does it with all the Pacers free agents that they have to deal with. Now, Tony, I want to get your thoughts specifically on one player, because Dylan and I have talked about it.
Did he play for the Hornets last year?
Yeah,
man,
he may have. He may or may not have. Yes, obviously talking about Kemba Walker, because Dylan has kind of been on the fence about it. I wouldn't mind it at all. I would actually like to see Kemba. I know that would maybe hurt the potential maybe growth of Aaron Holiday, maybe. But I think I would just love to see Kemba and Vic and in that backcourt. Your thoughts on the rumors that have been swirling about Kemba Walker and maybe going to the Pacers?
I don't think the rumor that he's coming here is the right way to say it. I think it's mostly just fan hope, and they need a point guard, and they have a max, and people are connecting a bunch of dots. Should Kemba decide that this is where he should play his next basketball, I think that's a great decision for the Pacers because he's really good. He's better than the point guards they had, and I think he's a solid fit alongside Vic because they don't have to, part of Vic's problem is he was exhausted from pounding the ball at the basket possession after possession last year. That would not have to happen with Kemba on the team. Kemba can shoot. Kemba can catch and shoot. I think they would fit well enough together. The problem with Kemba for me is, I think if you get Kemba, I say screw it to Aaron Holiday's development. He can be your fourth guard, no problem, and play 10 minutes, but I'm not super worried about that. To me, the problem is if you get Kemba, it's going to be a max, which means you're only keeping one of Boyan and Thad, and then that's your whole free agency. Everything else you're filling out with the minimum deals or the room mid-level, so you lose quite a bit of depth to get him, but I still think that's probably a worth it decision, though I do understand the trepidation about doing it. There are a lot of reasons to say, maybe that's not the best decision for this team.
Yeah, and like obviously you mentioned it would be a max, and the Pacers could afford it, but that, like you mentioned, it would basically be we'd be forced then to pick between Thad or Bojan and not bring back both, and that would create a gap in somewhere, either at the power forward or small forward position, which the Pacers are already kind of not so well. At power forward, I guess they're solid, but at the small forward, if we chose Thad and not Bojan,
you get a full 30 minutes of Doug McDermott.
Yeah. So, Dylan, I know, like I said, you've been on the fence about it.
I still don't know where I lie. You could convince me either way at this point. It's just I don't see the reason why you go out, spend big money on another guard, a team that really doesn't really need more backcourt help. I feel like they need more depth on the front court, if anything. And even if you do sign him, you lose a big hole, either the small forward or the power forward's position. You lose that, but keep Bojan, or you lose Bojan, but you keep Thad, right. And then you have to put either McDermott at the small forward, or you put TJ Leaf at the power forward, or something in the draft at least. So I don't know exactly if that's the right move. I mean, the idea of it happening is enticing, but I'm just not convinced Kemba and Vic would work the greatest together. I just for some reason in my mind it seems like Kemba would be more of a ball dominant guard, albeit all in lieu of like the Monte Ellis kind of role. But I know he's not Monte Ellis. I know he's not that kind of player. It's just it seems like it could go down that road.
I'm glad you caught yourself.
Yeah. It has I still can't get over that nightmare of an experiment. It's just it haunts my memories and haunts my dreams, and everything that I think could be good ends up that route. So
we talked about Kemba. Tony, I want to talk about a potential Lance Stevenson reunion. Do you do you think that that's a possibility at all? Because obviously Lance will be a free agent.
I have not thought about it.
What would be your thoughts on it?
I'm actively avoiding thinking about it.
I think most Pacer fans are. I don't know. I mean, I think Lance has openly said that he would love to come back and retire a Pacer. I think it's where he belongs. But at the same time, you have to make a basketball decision as well, and we know when we get good Lance, it's amazing, but obviously Pacer fans know that the opposite side to that is very bad Lance sometimes. So, Dylan, what do you... the whole Lance reunion, your thoughts?
In my opinion, we have a very good locker room going right now. And I know Lance has the tendency to either rejoice or reunion, I don't know, bring together a locker room or pull it apart. I just think there's a very delicate balance right now, and I don't think bringing Lance in solves anything on the court or off the court. I think his polarizing play hurt them at times, but it also helped them at times. But I think the times that it helped were very few and far between.
Kind of like the Tyreek situation.
Exactly. And I think there's just better options out there. I know fans would just lose their minds if we brought him back again, but I just don't think it's the right move. I think it was a good decision to let him go. I think it'll be a better decision to not go after him again.
Right. So, Tony, would you... I know you said you haven't thought about it much, but would you be open to a Lance Stevenson reunion, possibly?
As probably the most avid hater of Lance in Pacers mediadom, I would prefer him not come back.
Yeah.
Though I understand if you want to recapture the hearts of some fans after a tough playoff run and get a little depth on the wing, yeah, maybe, but not something
Right.
I personally hope they pursue.
Oh yeah, it's definitely a. I know because Pacer fans are like, oh, bring back Lance, he can revive the Pacers, and I'm just like, I love Lance, but
Me and them have different definitions of revive.
yeah, there are those Pacer fans out there who are soul set on that Lance is. He's the heart and soul of the Pacers when he's on the team. I'm not going to deny that, but it's just so there are polar opposites. When he's on, he's like I said, he's can be very good, but the polar opposite of that is when he's bad, he is very bad.
Yeah.
So, Tony, we'll move into just some other free agents that you may be keeping your eye on for the Pacers to sign. Just any guys that you are keeping your eyes on?
Just stretch fours in general because of the way KP has talked, but that's just mostly as like a fallback plan if that doesn't come back. And then wing depth in general, like to be very general with these guys, but like Nikola Mirotic makes some sense. I think Rudy Gay makes some sense. And then I think they'll pursue a high-end point guard, and if they can't get one, though.
You made Dylan very
like
happy
Orange
with your Rudy Gay.
Not Rudy Gay. Nikola Mirotic.
Nikola Mirotic, yeah. We've deemed him the Pacer killer.
Who?
Nikola Mirotic. We have on the show. We have deemed
and Terrence Ross, another good guy. For the Pacers.
Exactly. Like whenever we play Orlando, Terrence Ross decides to drop 30.
Yeah.
Yeah, he is unbelievable.
Hey, your boy Vince Edwards is.
I know. I would break the bank to bring back Vince Edwards to the Pacers. So,
you can tell he's a Purdue fan. Too.
Yeah. Yeah. If we could just bring Isaac Haas, PJ Thompson from overseas, Dakota Mathias, I would think we'd just be a finals conference.
Yeah. A guy I've kept my eye on, and I know it's probably a very long shot. I know because I believe he's restricted as well. Is Chris Middleton from the Bucks?
He's not restricted.
He's not restricted? Okay, never mind.
He's not.
I would personally love him, but I know that the Bucks.
He has a player option. That's the thing.
Oh, he's
not restricted, but he does have a player option.
Does he have a player option? Where is?
He's just done. His contract just ends.
I'm going off the ESPN article, which says player, which I assumed meant player option, but
I think he had a player option for this year, but I think he's going to opt out for sure because it's way lower than that.
And just I would love to see Chris Middleton because I know he's a great kind of 3-and-D type player and one of the not talked about guys on the Bucks. Obviously, there's Giannis and everyone else, but Chris Middleton, I'd also like maybe Eric Bledsoe. Just your thoughts on maybe those two guys, Tony, and how they would maybe mesh with the Pacers?
Yeah, the Bucks have a lot of guys they could go after between those two and Brogdon.
I think Brogdon stays,
Bledsoe
though.
signed an extension, right? I don't think he'll be a free agent.
Did he?
He signed it in the middle of the season.
Oh, okay. Then never mind about Bledsoe, then.
Between Middleton and Brogdon, though, I think you have some guys you could... And Mirotic, they seem like whoever gets squeezed out of there could be a great scoop up for the Pacers. I'm pretty cool with all of them. They're all good players who would be worth the amount of money they would fetch in free agency. I know that's a boring answer, but...
no,
There's a reason the Bucks are good, and those guys are part of it.
Yeah, and then obviously you mentioned Terrence Ross would be another good addition. I'm just looking at... I know this could be a long shot potentially, but Tobias Harris of Philly.
Yep. If he gets squeezed out of there because of cap stuff. There's a lot of great fits that they just have to have something go slightly wrong with their current.
Yeah. So, and I'm just looking at Philly. I mean, J.J. Redick, he did say that if the Pacers offered him, I think, it's a longer contract, I believe, he would have signed with them. So potentially, J.J. Redick maybe. Philly has a ton of free agents. Obviously, Jimmy Butler. I think he's going to decline probably his player option and seek a max deal and everything. So it's just free agency is going to be wild. The Pacers, like we talked about, have a lot of decisions to make, and So it's going to be interesting to see what they do. Tony, thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We greatly appreciate your insight as always.
Yeah, guys, thanks for having me. It's always fun to talk basketball.
Yeah, not a problem. If you haven't already, go follow this man on Twitter. Tony, want to take your time to
promote yourself.
Because I know.
Yeah, I'm on Twitter at TEast, like the direction NBA. Pretty much. You know what? People have spelled it wrong before.
But
pretty much every tweet I have is about the basketball or Pacers, so if you're into that stuff.
And he writes amazing articles for 8.9 seconds.
Yes.
And
then head on over.
Yeah, just go check out this man's work. It's phenomenal. Tony,
I appreciate that.
Not a problem. Like we said, we appreciate your work and all that you do for the Pacers, and just it's great to bring in a financial guru like yourself and just to be able to provide your insight. Thanks for joining us today, and best of luck.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
Not a problem. See you, Tony. Alrighty. Well, that was fun to have Tony on, as always. I just wanted to... We're going to close out the show. I just wanted to take this opportunity and then kind of reflect, I guess. Because both of us will be... Are you finishing up in the summer?
Yeah, I'm graduating in July of 20... Or not July of 20. July 20th. I'm the late guy, but I just blame... I blame myself because I miscalculated my number of credits needed. So.
I'm walking, but I'm also finishing up a few classes over the summer.
I decided just to walk in July. I'm like,
But, yes, this is the last time that we're going to be in here. Kind of, like I said, just to reflect when I know that we first started this show out of the thought of we were doing the Cardinal Sports Live podcast on the NBA, and it was like, hey, we don't get to talk about the Pacers as much as we would like, so I think I pitched the idea to you one summer, and we were just like, yeah, let's roll with it. And it's never thought we'd get to the chances we've got. I know we've interviewed JJ, Pat Boylan, get to know...
Meet the Born Ready people.
Tony, and it's been phenomenal what we've been able to, just do. I just thought we'd just come in and talk just Pacers, but we've met some incredible people, and just like to thank, just Ian Hansen also gets a special shout out.
He does the dirty work.
Yeah, he's the kind of...
He really doesn't get enough credit.
He really doesn't, and go follow him on Twitter and everything. He is the person who's live tweeting for us. Potentially, I'm in the works of messaging him. He may... I don't know if he's coming here to Ball State. I know he's highly considering it, but can maybe take over the show for us. But we'll see about that in the future. But it's been just an incredible 2 years talking Pacers basketball. Thank you, Dylan, for agreeing to do it. I know we've just been able to talk Pacers basketball the past 2 years is very cool, and I know we've followed the team. It sucks, especially this year.
Yeah.
But, that's it. Best. I just want to wish you the best of luck and everything. And it's been, like we said, it's been a fun ride. But yeah, I think we're going to sign off for the final time. So, for Dylan Deanhart, I'm Cody Emerson. Thank you, everyone who has, watched our videos, kept up with us on the 670 followers we have on Twitter. The show wouldn't be possible without you guys. Yeah. And our Twitter would not be possible without you guys. So thank you to everyone. But for Dylan Deanhart, I'm Cody Emerson. Go Pacers.